Rewind the dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly as we hear from John and Wai Ting. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show. And if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rewind to Dynamite. I'm John Pollock here alongside Wai Ting following tonight's episode of Dynamite. Was tonight Dynamite?
Well, what is Dynamite? An explosion?
The last 2 weeks for this company. I guess we'll find out tomorrow at 4:30 if it's Dynamite or not.
I don't think
or if it's just like a nice campfire.
Well, I don't think Dynamite is always necessarily supposed to be a good thing. Certainly, if in real life, if you're next to a dynamite explosion without proper protection, that's not a good thing at all. It's very loud, get hurt.
Well, they do this weekly.
So what? I'm prepared.
This is weekly Dynamite.
Okay. Well, if you're saying if it felt like an explosion of action and crazy stories and professional wrestling excitement. I would say the pace of the show, yeah, it's very much like an explosion. It's very fast.
Well, I think everyone will be drawn to Thursday's number because I think it'll be very indicative of just the momentum that the company is riding. Like, so often people will associate a number with the quality of a show, but more often it's more so reflective of what the overall feeling is of a company at a point. And if something is hot, it may not be felt until the following week or so. Whereas, you know, we can look at what we're going to get into Raw from Monday night. I think that was kind of the culmination of an overall attitude towards Raw. And it kind of just hit a low point on Monday, regardless of what was on there on Monday.
Sure. But certainly I think the effort that they put out on Monday didn't help things. You know, the like we've seen what makes differences for them, at least, you know, on a singular, like, I don't know, one-time basis from time to time. And that's announcing something large. No real attempt was made on Monday to do that at all.
Well, let's get into the Raw number off the top, because that is one of the big stories this week. A all-time low figure for Raw. For as long as we have data for Raw, 1,527,000 viewers, a 0.41 in the 18 to 49 demo. So to compare that to the previous week, they were down 12% in overall viewership, which still was sixth for the night on cable, down almost 20% in their demo. They fell from a 0.51 to a 0.41 in a week. That was rather staggering. Their male audience was down significantly. Males 18 to 49 dropped 31% this week. Men 12 to 34 down 25%, and their adult 18 to 34 audience down 29% this week. What happened to Raw this week that saw these numbers fall off a cliff from the week before?
I think, like you said, it's just a real general, just I don't know. Just boredom of what that product has been offering lately. You know, and the fact that this number took place within days of AEW receiving their best of the year and one of their best period certainly makes for really interesting headlines. It's so funny because, like, somebody on Ask Away this week, which we recorded on Tuesday afternoon, they asked us, do you think in 2021 AEW will overtake Raw in the Prime demo? And, like, our answer was like,
no, they said viewers, if you go back to that, but we were noting, like, the demo, I said that it was, it's much closer
than was the question.
Well, it was nonetheless, yes. This week, AEW, if you're looking at last Wednesday's show, they beat Raw in the 18 to 49 and 18 to 34 demos, as well as 25 to 54-year-old adults as well. They edged past them. Like, this is, granted, this was a very high point for AEW last week and the lowest point for Raw, but that is a staggering number. And
it's indicative of the playing field, and it's indicative of perhaps the trends that are at play here.
I thought one of the more alarming numbers, like, yes, they did their lowest hour ever in the third hour, but to me, that first hour was just as terrible. 1,627,000 viewers. That was their second lowest first hour ever. And that tells me there were probably a lot of people like me who tuned into Raw, saw that image, and they just had to hit pause and did not want to continue forward with that. Like, this was not eroding an audience that existed. If you look at throughout the night, it's not like the audience fell, but not so dramatically. Like, there was just not interest from the beginning of this show.
Yeah. What can we say that we don't usually say on a Monday about the quality of show?
What is the response, I guess, is the question. They will not be lower than this Monday. They are coming off a pay-per-view next week. It was a big football game, but that to me does not explain all of this. They have gone against bigger football games this season. They went against a bigger football game last week that had combined viewership on 2 networks. So I don't just look at the football. That to me is you're obfuscating the larger issue if you're just looking for an excuse of why it's down. There is an overall problem that this show is losing audience. Their competitor is gaining audience. And I think that, enormous changes need to be made, but this is a company that looks for immediate change. End the brand split. Bring back a McMahon, do a title match on TV, little things that will spark a couple week erosion. And then we're back to this several months later. They're able to stop the bleeding, but not assess the wound.
So, if the question is what action they take following this, I mean, they've been bleeding for a very long time. And the time to have, go to some emergency remedy, like, would have been at this point, like a year plus years ago. We've seen those attempts, and like you've said, they've been Band-Aid solutions at best. And I don't really see things being all that different here. Like, it's not like they've not tried until this point. They have tried, but their attempts to try have just been either very short-lived or just, ultimately result in the same type of quality of show or worse up until this point. Things that just don't last.
I think that this is one where I think Monday's show becomes that much more important in terms of just if we just watch a run-of-the-mill Raw episode on Monday, I think that that's going to be very deflating for people. But again, if you're just looking for quick fixes, I don't think that's the answer. I don't think that is ultimately going to curb this. This is something where I feel you need a significant long-term plan, and you have a person that is running this company that does not have a ton of patience when it comes to long-term plans and can blow things up. He is very in the moment and looking to the next Monday, that I think it becomes very difficult for that writing staff to even be able to hatchet together a 6 or 12 month plan, because there's no faith that could be executed, that by week 4 of a 6-month plan, it's thrown out the window. It's not catching on. We have to do something immediate. And that's just a broken record, I think, in the company, of so many performers that I don't think are utilized effectively. We do not have stars on this show, save for maybe 2 that we can argue that are actual stars on these shows. And it just, to me, is indicative of an environment where its audience has grown very tiresome. They have watched out of habit, and now there's some exciting stuff happening elsewhere, and people are getting their fix elsewhere. And it doesn't have to be Monday night being their wrestling night. If this is a permanent shift of audience moving over to Wednesday nights, even if Dynamite is not going to stay at what they did last week, just eking away at that audience, like, there is momentum going in one direction for AEW and momentum going in the opposite direction for Raw. And that's been evident. And I think it's just going a lot faster than people thought.
Oh, I don't think any of us expected to have like this conversation, like pretty much a little over a year into AEW's like Dynamite's existence. That's insane to me, and I think continues to be, one of the biggest stories, at least as it relates to actual, wrestling business of the past year. But as far as like what changes the company needs to make, it feels like we have one of these conversations every time they hit another low. and it's going to take a major philosophical, like, systematic change for this company to finally actually do something that lasts, in my opinion. It's not going to be bringing back the old guard and like a Bruce Pritchard who really is just there to kind of, execute Vince McMahon's whims anyway. Short of like completely gutting, that just how they do things in general, I don't know if I really see an end to this trend.
Yeah, it's one that I don't think you can solve in a podcast. It's not one that you can just solve with like, here are your 5 easy steps. To me, number one is patience, and it's something that I don't think you have seen exhibited in. Like, there is kind of an understanding. And I mean, Paul Heyman has talked about this in the past of, if you want to get to this level, you've got to be able to have that patience to sit back for a year. For a year, it's going to take you to get to this level. And you can invest all of that patience in a year, and there's no promise that you will get to that level. It could be a year that you sacrifice your numbers to build, and it still doesn't work. It's still a crapshoot with all of this. So that's the game you're playing. But I think you're looking at, the alternative now of structured storytelling, having, a genuine alternative that you see on Wednesday nights, and a different way of presenting television. And it seems that it's been something where they have spent their time building that foundation, and now they're going out of their comfort zone to get that buzz factor that's drawing people in. And I think it's still too early to tell if ultimately those newer fans or lapsed fans are going to stick around, or if they were just checking in and things will kind of level out for AEW. But last week was certainly a sign that these people were coming back for the novelty of Sting, for whatever else is going on the show. Like, if they are invested in that whole show, and it took Sting to gain their interest to check this program out, and they liked what they're seeing, well, that's what you strive for. That's why you do things like you bring in a Sting to hopefully bring in new eyeballs that are going to fall in love with your product.
Sure, yeah, and you really, it's obviously it's not just bringing in Sting. Like WWE can bring in Sting, and it'll make a difference. I just don't know if like that same excitement will be the same.
No, it's a perfect comparison, because if the tables were turned and Sting showed up on Raw next Monday and there was some big buzz, oh my God, Sting's back, and he shoots an angle with someone. If say 300,000 people tune in that have not been watching Raw, they've given up on it, and Sting's on Monday's show, but the rest of that show is what you've got, well, Sting is not going to be enough that's going to curb my interest to dedicate 3 hours to on Monday. Like, Sting is what is there in the storefront window that gets me in, but if there's no product I want to buy in this store, then that's great. The display was really nice, but I'm not interested in spending my time or my money here.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in the end, for me, I just asked for a good wrestling TV show. I don't even know if it needs to be all that complicated. Like, and to do it in 3 hours is a really tough task every single week. So I don't even know what the answer to that is. How can somebody, even if they were really trying really hard, make a consistent 3-hour show that's good every single week? That's tough. But give me at least 2 of those 3 hours, worth watching, I think.
Yeah, I think you certainly are looking at a much tougher task with the fatigue factor of Monday nights. I think short term, you can certainly look at the fact they are coming off a pay-per-view Monday. That typically gives them something. And Monday Night Football will be coming to an end. But again, I would not be resting my laurels on that. I think that those are all small little factors that fall into your favor, but they don't address the larger issues of the trend of where a lot of these numbers are going. And when you look a year ago, 18 months ago, where that audience has gone, like, that's when it gets staggering. We're not comparing to a different era of television. We're not even going back 3 or 4 years. We're going back 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and looking at the trend of where these, especially younger audiences, have gone. And it's a pretty stark reminder. Once we hit like a factor like this, where you're hitting a 4-1 in your demo.
How much time do we have until those contracts are, at least up for negotiation, you think?
The WWE deals are up in fall of 2024. So that would mean the negotiations would probably be starting like early 2023 is probably when you're starting to have those meaningful talks. It was about a year and a half out from their previous deals being up when they announced going to Fox and the new deal with USA.
So still a lot of time to really turn the ship around. But I mean, a year goes by like just like that. And can they do that? Can they turn things around?
And they've got a genius with them in Nick Khan. Like, that is a huge name that they have that's going to be out there on the front lines negotiating these
negotiator deals. But are we ultimately, maybe
this is the product he has to sell, though, and that's going to be his task. And there's two ways that the market can read this. Either AEW, like let's believe that, you know, if we were talking about negotiations happening now, are you viewing AEW as this property that is greatly underfinanced given what it's doing in comparison to Raw, or is it going to be believed that Raw is significantly overvalued, that their price would come down? I think most believe that WWE will still somehow get a renewal at or above what they're making now. But if that's the case, I mean, AEW would be in for an enormous increase, I would think, if these trends continue.
Agreed. Yeah, I think it's more so the latter. I think right now AEW to me seems like it's an undervalued company, but in 2 years' time, I wonder what the landscape will even be like.
It's impossible to predict. But today, I mean, it's certainly, if you're putting any kind of forecast down, like AEW is going in one direction. I think that would be the one where, man, we are not going to hit Raw in total viewers, but the audience that we are making up of younger viewers, I mean, for what we're paying in comparison, I mean, TNT feel like geniuses for getting this renewal when they did in January, locking them in long term to those 4 years. Like for the next 4 years, they're going to have them. Like, this is $45 million a year. This is a very, like, to me, healthy investment by TNT for how they are performing on Wednesdays.
And they got a second or third hour coming. So
correct.
We shall see how that performs too.
Tuesday night, we're going to stick on some ratings notes here because we had week 2 of the Kenny Omega experiment on Impact Wrestling, and this is going to lead to a 6-man tag at the pay-per-view next month, Hard to Kill, on January 16th, with Kenny Omega, Carl Anderson, and Doc Gallows against Rich Swann and the Motor City Machine Guns. The show this week was down from last week. They did 177,000 viewers, a .04 in the demo. So they were down 20% in viewers, 50% in the demo. And similar trends to Twitch, where they were down significantly from last week, but overall, it's still a net gain for Impact of what they were doing pre this angle with Kenny Omega. So, number one, did you see Impact, mainly the angle involved, and how did you read these numbers if you're Impact? Not retaining all of your audience from last week, but could they have?
I started watching from the second hour on Twitch, and so I caught the final angle. I thought the show overall was somewhat underwhelming. I mean, it was very much the same as the first week in that you had kind of interspliced footage of Kenny Omega in the truck or in the bus. You had that really amusing Tony Khan, Tony Schiavone paid advertisement again.
I thought it was very funny. I thought it was funnier this week than week 1. Like, they've got the smug factor down pretty well.
I have to say, like, from what I've seen overall, I thought they really like had a great announcement at the end of the show, and I think the closing angle was really good. Like, there's enough buzz coming out of the show to lead you into that pay-per-view with that match that I think makes the whole thing worthwhile and still continues that level of buzz. But maybe overall the show, especially like thinking about some of these ratings, I personally look at them as a bit of a disappointment. You know, like losing 50% of like your core demo, I suppose, even if it's, you know, it's still like a different ball game that we're really talking about here. But they certainly didn't grow, which is, I think, ultimately the best case scenario. So people tuned in out of curiosity, and a lot of them decided that it wasn't worth watching again, or that they maybe could just see the Kenny parts, you know, afterwards on Twitter or wherever.
That's true. I mean, you did have that option. I mean, if you just like that goes to tell you, I mean, again, going back to if you were someone that only cared about Sting on Dynamite, are you going to be invested in watching the entire program, or you just will wait and watch that one clip? And again, that goes to last week's number where I think it was really strong. The fact that, AEW, like they did tremendous across the board. That tells me that people liked what they saw, or they wanted to watch the whole show. This, like, it is very clear, like in Impact, it's not like there's this trickle down effect, at least that we're not seeing yet, where it's all these other Impact programs are coming to people's light that they're focused on. It's what's Omega doing, and that's kind of carrying this whole thing. I guess the next question is it enough that this will encourage you to buy an Impact pay-per-view next month for that match?
Yeah, despite maybe what I think about like the the TV rating, I actually think the pay-per-view will be a different story. I think it's a really attractive main event for an Impact pay-per-view. It's a Bullet Club reunion, as like Kenny Omega's, the words that actually came out of Kenny Omega's mouth. I mean, really makes you wonder, like, if he would, I don't know, the legalities of maybe like actually explicitly saying something like that. But like, nonetheless, the idea I think is really strong, and I think there's going to be plenty of interest for the Kenny Omega match. It's just because it's Kenny Omega on pay-per-view. I mean, look at just the interest in AAA this past weekend, the heightened interest at least, compared to previous year's AAA Triple Manias, just because of Kenny Omega on pay-per-view. I think that is a difference maker.
You could see tonight, Kenny's been open about this, about, the state of his health right now. And he's trying to avoid having any surgery. You could see the cupping marks on his back. And it just seems like this guy, he's coming off that Moxley match, the Laredo Kid match. He's going to do a Ray Phoenix match in 2 weeks. Match. The Janela match tonight, and again, even like you look on paper, it's like, okay, a 6-man, you can dial it back a bit. I don't think you can because people are buying this to see a Kenny Omega match in this 6-man and everything, the pressure that comes with that. Like, he is really, to me, pushing himself physically to the limit during this whole period as champion, and going all over the place where. And it's not like this guy is half-assing it like we saw this past Saturday.
Seems like a guy who, like, maybe is somewhat kind of making up for lost time, not being in the single spotlight for a bit. Certainly in the past 2 weeks since he's already won the championship, he's already the talk of the industry, and he's already completely reinvigorated, I think, our perceptions of him this year as, primarily a tag team wrestler. And now just the hottest singles wrestler in the industry.
Do you think that Impact has to be creative now over these next couple of weeks, because they're going to best of programming on Tuesday? Do they risk losing any of this momentum, or the fact that they do have this pay-per-view that you think they can reasonably pick it right back up in January?
I think the pay-per-view and like the hot main event, like a guaranteed of Kenny Omega's involvement throughout the weeks is a good way to keep people on. I think you experience drops, for these best of shows. It's really unfortunate timing, unfortunately for their taping schedule, that the deal all had to come at about this time. But I'm sure they take it when they can. But I think things will pick back up, especially if they continue to shoot interesting angles. Now, we have seen, with 2 weeks into this thing now, it's a rather one-sided, I would say, kind of quote-unquote invasion. Where I mean, on Impact, you get plenty of AEW involvement. You get Kenny Omega throughout the entire show. You get Tony Khan and Tony Schiavone. You get the commentators mentioning AEW pretty much all the time. But on Dynamite, it's not like you see Rich Swann. It's not like you're seeing the Good Brothers, at least not yet. And you have brief mentions of Impact, but beyond Don Callis, we're not seeing as much. So, not to say like that really kind of like takes the whole thing down, but it doesn't feel as much of a kind of like, fully formed invasion as maybe like, I had originally built up in my head, at least not just yet.
Yeah. I think like AEW is getting to a point where it's just so busy as is. Mm-hmm. I don't even know how you could fit all this stuff in. And in a way, it does kind of fit the story that like Impact is clearly positioned as the inferior company, that Tony Khan isn't even allowing these guys onto his TV. I think it actually plays at like a different level as well. The fact that it's so like barely mentioned on AEW, like Impact is positioned in this role. And I think they're in a position where we're not talking about two companies on equal footing working together here. It's like both in storyline and probably both legitimately, like it's AEW that ultimately is going to get the final say of what's going to happen here, because they are coming from a position of power. Certainly.
Yeah. Certainly, I wonder if in the weeks to come, we do eventually get a bit more crossover. I think there's a great deal of potential, not just like it's kind of sequestering all the involvement to Kenny Omega, but of course with the rest of the rosters that you could really mix it up with. So there's great.
When the timing's right, you could definitely do that. I don't think you have to go to that immediately, but yeah, that's something in their pocket, and there's something to gain from AEW by some of the talent that you could utilize, like having a Anderson and Gallows show up at Daly's place. Like there's certainly ideas that I think you can go to that for weeks where AEW, it might be a more quiet week, that maybe that's when they want to pull the trigger on something like that.
Perhaps. Yeah.
So there was also this story out of Japan that the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department is planning to file charges against a man that was accused of cyberbullying Hana Kimura, who took her life this past May. And there were posts that were deleted after her death, but people had captured screenshots of them, and they were sent to the police. The suspect apparently did apologize to Kimura's family back in June through email, but he is now facing charges here. And this was an alarming stat. There are some 1,200 posts from 600 accounts that are being investigated.
Jeez, wow. Oh, my God. Really disheartening. I haven't read the post personally. I can't really comment on the appropriate amount of punishment for something like this. I mean, were there laws like put in place for something like that at that time?
Well, that's kind of what Hana Kimura's family is kind of, I think, trying to push for. It's like, this is all kind of, this is kind of like the next wave of kind of digital policing, and what responsibility is on somebody for posts of like harassing posts that ultimately, contributed to, Hana Kimura's mental state. And I think that's, I think it becomes very tricky when you're looking to, invoke the law here. And especially when we're talking about the internet, where, you're talking about the entire worldwide, geographical area. But I think it's something that it's like you have to be looking at when these people are being tortured online. And I don't think it's just as simple as, these celebrities have to get off Twitter or get off social media. I don't think that's like a realistic onus on their part to have to do. And I guess this is just a case to certainly watch. And what is the outcome here? And is this going to curb any kind of online harassment? I can't imagine it will, but it's, something where the police are actually looking to move forward here. But I just thought those numbers too were just like, that gives you a glimpse of what this woman was probably privy to on a daily basis, just by turning her phone on.
Yeah, it's terrible. I love the fact that it's like it continues the conversation going. I also hope like there's an appropriate amount of justice, and by that I mean like it's that we don't just maybe call for like this guy to go to jail or something if like these rules weren't necessarily set in place. But if it means like making changes for the future because of something like this, I'm all for that.
I think what you're looking for ultimately here is, number one, remorse from the person that I would hope certainly has. I don't think I would I would hope that no one that would post something so awful, like wishing that upon someone, would actually want to see that happen. and you would hope has that guilt now. But that the fact that they are now looking at charges and stuff, that will at the very least scare people off from posting stuff. That, you know, what you put out there digitally, you can delete whatever you want. It will exist out there, and hoping that people understand there are potential repercussions to this.
Or just to think about what you're doing, what you're putting out there on the internet.
Well, that would be the ultimate thing. But if scare tactics are the best we're going to get, obviously we would hope for a more remorseful section of society that feels these people are untouchable or somehow they're not real people that will never see these messages. We're learning that they do see a lot of these messages, and they can have worse effects than you even intended.
To me, I think it just even starts from a very early age, and I don't know if they're school programs or if this is even part of a curriculum, but just even I think I don't know. We're taught, of course, from children to be respectful to people that we meet in real life. But at least when I was in school, certainly there was no mention about proper internet etiquette. And I wonder if that's changed at all. But I certainly think that's very important.
Last thing here, because we won't get to talk about it before it happens on Friday, ROH has their final battle card. So the pre-show is going to air at 8 o'clock Eastern free, and it's going to feature 3 matches, including a 4-way with Tony Deppen, Josh Woods, LSG, and Dak Draper. The winner will challenge Dragon Lee later in the night for the TV title. Then there's Fred Yehai and Wheeler Yuta against Rhett Titus and Tracy Williams in a Pure Rules tag match that I think will be pretty entertaining. And Brian Johnson versus Danhausen. The pay-per-view card at 9 is headlined by Roosh and Brody King for the ROH title, Jonathan Gresham against Flip Gordon for the Pure title, and Gresham's doing double duty because he's also defending the tag titles with Jay Lethal against PCO and Mark Briscoe, the Dragon Lee title defense, and Matt Taven and Mike Bennett against Vincent and Bateman. And what was interesting is that Joe Koff did an interview with PW Insider today, noting that there are ongoing talks with both Roosh and Dragon Lee regarding their contracts with ROH. So that adds a wrinkle into things going into Friday, as both are holding titles, and it looks like they are still in the midst of contract talks with ROH. So we're going to have John Cena on Friday night on Rewind to SmackDown right after the pay-per-view ends, and he'll do a rundown of the show and what happens, which ROH, I have been enjoying their television quite a lot. I'm looking forward to watching this pay-per-view at some point this weekend, but they have come back, and I've really enjoyed the 1-hour format and the adjustments that they've made in the empty arena setting. So they've got a lot of cool things that they've been executing on TV.
Is it a pre-tape?
No, it's they are in Baltimore now. I think they were doing TV during the week, and I believe it's a live pay-per-view on Friday.
Okay, cool.
All right. AEW, anything we should mention for the site? The jingle contest, I think we are actually, we've gotten several entries, but I think we're going to extend the deadline because, we have the time to do so. So we are going to extend the deadline if people want to get their jingles in at forum.postwrestling.com. You can throw up your jingle submissions. We'll get to all of them on the Christmas show that drops on Christmas Eve. It's going to be you and I spending Christmas Eve together virtually.
When do you want to extend the deadline till?
Why don't you? Well,
I guess it depends. Honestly, it depends on you because you'll be having to put it into the anyway. Sorry, don't want to reveal too much here, but
let's extend the deadline to we'll make it Sunday night. Is Sunday night enough time?
Works for me, yeah. So basically, at the end of TLC.
Let's say that. Okay, so people have till Sunday night to put the finishing touches on their Christmas jingles for the Christmas show. And yes, we will be live on Friday night, 10:30 p.m. Eastern time. 10:30 is a special start time this week to accommodate the timing of the ROH pay-per-view ending. So that will be there for all patrons. And then we'll be live right after TLC on Sunday night. So a lot of live shows coming up in the next few days.
On the site right now, we have last night's edition of Ask Away, 2 hours of me and John Pollock answering all of your questions. exclusively on our Post Wrestling Cafe Patreon. Andrew Thompson and Davey Portman return for their Impact review. So if you want to hear all about the show, including Kenny Omega's big reunion with the Good Brothers, you could find that on the Up Next feed and also on this feed too, if you just scroll down right below. Up Next is up tonight, probably there right now as you're listening to this. Tomorrow, it's the return of Bushby and Thompson's Wrestling Adventure.
Going back to 2016 with King of Pro Wrestling with Kazuchika Okada and Naomichi Marufuji in the main event.
And that'll be found on the British Wrestling Experience feed. So just subscribe to that right now wherever you download your podcast. Rewind to SmackDown on the Patreon live at 10:30 this week. So 15 minutes later than usual, but starting at 10:30 live for all patrons and then downloadable afterwards for all patrons. And then on Sunday, it is the TLC post show with me and John live for all double espresso and ice cap patrons. So go and check that out.
Check it out. Post Wrestling Cafe members, you get Rewind to SmackDown every Friday night. We'll also be doing live editions of the best of and worst of shows coming up over the next couple of weeks. So Braden and Davey will be joining us for those. But tonight we head over for a live edition of Dynamite from Daly's Place, starting off with Hangman Page, John Silver, and Alex Reynolds celebrating Cowboy Day against Matt Hardy and Private Party, with Matt sporting his "The Truth is the Truth" shirt.
Yeah, so the storylines going in here are that Dark Order, of course, are courting Hangman Page. Much of this is played out on BTE, and Page has agreed to team with them at least for one night. While Matt Hardy, he's been doing this overly egotistical, character that I guess now is called his Truth is the Truth character, and he really screwed up Private Party's performances in the Diamond Ring Battle Royal 2 weeks ago. It's kind of strange in that, I don't know how pissed off Private Party have been. It's like, this dude has really screwed things up for them for a good month now. And they still...
But he's Matt Hardy.
You're right. It's too much reverence there.
So, the Dark Order and Page cleared the ring, and John Silver was hilarious here, swinging the invisible lasso on the back of Hangman Page. They double-teamed Silver, including Mark Quinn, hitting a standing moonsault onto Silver's back. They got the heat on Silver until he hit a brainbuster, which brought out a Killer Carl Cox reference from Jim Ross. And he tags Page, who hit this fallaway slam Pescado. Hardy came up here, and he had busted his lip from some strike he took. There was this awesome sequence of a pop-up powerbomb from Page into a German by Silver and a jackknife cover by Reynolds, but Quinn kicked out. An awesome, triple team sequence. Then Silver took a twist of fate to the floor, and Silver immediately grabs his left knee, and he never returned for the match. So hopefully that was just selling. And they hit the gin and juice onto Reynolds, but Matt Hardy tagged himself in to steal the cover in 10 minutes and 47 seconds.
I thought an okay tag match.
Had its bumps along the way.
Sure. By the end of it, I thought it was a little below my taste for AEW tag standards, and I don't know exactly if it's just due to the in-ring work or maybe the fact that I'm somebody who really does appreciate a bit of crowd sweetening, and I think on these live shows sometimes you could really tell, and it results in sometimes even the finishes themselves not being all that exciting to me, just maybe in terms of atmosphere. But as far as storyline goes, I think Dark Order and Page have so much personality. I like this this dynamic they have. I thought they were effectively able to convey that story here. Some good moments between them in the ring. I think the Hardy thing is dragging out a little bit longer than it should without appropriate response from Private Party. They should be pretty pissed off at this guy by now. And yet every week they just continue to pair up with him as if nothing was wrong.
Yeah, well, maybe they're gonna have to have a heart to heart.
Yes.
There was no way you could watch tonight's show and not be reminded that next week's show will start at 10 p.m. or after the NBA game. They hammered this to you, as
Great.
They should.
Absolutely, yes.
Inner Circles with Alex Marvez, with MJF holding the plaque, presented by the New York Times for their review of Le Dîner Debonair.
I didn't realize these were real awards. I thought this was just a mention in an article.
Do you think this was a legit plaque from the New York Times? Do they send these out to all of their mentions for their year-end, best of the year?
I guess I didn't have reason to think that they were making this up, but you think it's me?
Like, I know they're the New York Times, but I mean, the newspaper industry really got the plaque budget. Like that to me is where, you know what? Let's we'll throw that Maggie Haberman's way. We're not investing in plaques to send out to pro wrestling in Florida.
Well, you think so? Okay, let's say they made this up. Like, why would they do it in the form of a plaque? Why not just show the article on an iPad or something?
Well, they need a weapon. Someone's gonna get blasted with
an
this
iPad's a weapon.
Point.
But you're right. Okay, maybe a printed piece of paper.
That would be awesome if they were walking around with the same piece of newspaper week after week, and they had to transport this thing with them. I really like.
Yeah, please
go ahead.
Well, I thought it was really amusing that the fact they were able to, number one, brag about a real life piece of publicity here from a mainstream source while using it to further a story here between these two.
I enjoyed the interplay here with Jericho and MJF. It's Jericho's trying to take credit for Le Dinner Debonair, and MJF cuts him off, and he just says, "I'm so sick of people online writing that I'm such a better performer than Chris Jericho. He's my mentor. He's the GOAT. He's my best friend. I love you, man." And Jericho just tells him, "Congratulations." I think it's great. Just like the little digs that just constantly build and build between these two. Like, it's just really great.
Really great. Constant push-pull between them. Both just really good at knowing how to play the role and, just giving you enough every single week.
Cody and Brandi are decorating a Christmas tree when the door knocks and there is a mysterious gift on the front step. They open it up. It's Gucci. And I literally thought, oh, Gucci diaper bag. Ha ha ha. Which goes for a lot. Yes. And it's the reveal that the two are expecting a child in 2021.
A lot of wrestling babies on their way.
Man, this is like the baby reveal show on Dynamite.
It's a long-term build, man. Like, 20 years time. On AEW Dark, you probably see some of these performers. Yeah, it's kind of unusual to see like such an explicit baby reveal like this. This felt like the type of video you would send privately to your friends, and not necessarily like one that you broadcast on national television. But of course, these are different people. They're not normal people. They are very much the first family of this company. And I think something like this, as we would go on to see, almost seemed to be an introduction of a new character for Cody now. The father to be.
Father to be, yeah. He was even introduced here by Justin Roberts as the future father, Cody, as he took on Angelico. Shivani was noting that perhaps he could grow his hair out like Angelico, but he draws the line at trying to learn how to dance like Angelico. After the break, Jack Evans was getting involved. Arn yanked him down. Angelico did some great submission work, kicking away at the right leg to weaken it before he went for Navarro dos Mil after yanking Cody's hand when he got on his back to go for the slap. And Cody worked his way to the rope and got out of the submission by channeling Tomohiro Ishii, and he bit the rope. That led to the Navarro death roll that Rhodes was still able to get out of. Crossroads is countered, but then Cody goes high with the Cody cutter, and he pins Angelico in 9 minutes and 42 seconds.
I thought it's been a really good couple of weeks for Angelico, who is only really booked to be a supporting player, but I think in ring he's got a very different style. What is his submission style called?
The
Negro.
Yave.
Yeah, how do you say that?
Yave.
Yes. It's very unique and unlike anything else that you get to see on Dynamite. And I think this was a good match that was able to display some of that. And
I really like that it separates him. When you watch Lucha Underground, so much of it was just his flying, and he's a spectacular flyer. But I think this really differentiates himself, and I think it's all like logical, like the way he worked on the right leg and chopping away at it, and it feeds into these unique submissions that no one else on the show is doing. It's like I think it's been a nice showcase for him. This was a fine match. I wouldn't say it was anything like blow away great, but it was a nice spotlight for Angelico because I like the style.
I thought it was notable for the fact that, as we had mentioned, like on commentary, they were talking about Cody as the father to be. Even like Shivani mentioning how, you could see it in his eyes, like he's thinking about his future child. Like, I guess that was what they were trying to convey. So it seems like it's at the beginning of a new type of character for Cody.
Team Taz comes out, and you knew that Taz was going to be cutting a promo on a baby. He mocks Cody's news. He threatens Darby Allin. He tells Cody, "We're going to put you on paternity leave." But then the lights go out and Sting comes out. I feel Sting was, granted, he was on this show to pull a number, but I felt he was like just here for Tony to scream, "It's Sting!" And he did it twice.
As he should be.
They really noted that it was Powerhouse Hobbs that was being restrained. They showed a shot of Darby, and then Sting gave a wink at Cody. And that was it. That was all Sting was here for. So if you tuned in specifically for Sting, I think you would have been left a little, I don't know. Not disappointed, but it was just, there was nothing really to this. This was just a straight line from last week.
I would personally say disappointed, especially the fact that they, they announced, as a feature that Sting would be a part of this show.
They said he'd appear. They didn't lie. He appeared. He literally, Sting will drive to the building. He'll get out of his car, and he's going to walk out in his paint.
You can see him for 30 seconds. Yeah. I think 3 weeks in, after already hearing him speak so much last week, I kind of need a bit more than him just walking out with a bat. The
novelty of Sting is going to wear thin when you're showing him weekly. So I agree with you. If you're going to use him weekly, then you do have to take the next step. And I think after tonight's appearance, this is the last one you can kind of get away with just, my God, it's Sting is here with his presence among us. It's, I think you got to take the next step. To be honest, I think you've got the next week or two kind of loaded up that maybe you save them for a few weeks when you can do something more substantial with them.
It seems like fatherhood is going to be a big theme of this program between Taz and, the Nightmare family. So I need to see some father-son time between Sting and Darby Allin.
Are you kidding? This is dude, it's like Cody's the son and Darby's the grandson.
Sure, okay, fine. Grandson. I just want to see Sting play catch with a flaming fireball with Darby Allin, or at least joining him for some sort of bungee jumping crazy thing.
Alex Marvez interviewed Miro, who was fined $75,000 for injuring 3 staff members last week. $25,000 per staff member. So Drew McIntyre and Sheamus got off easy on Monday.
Well, how much did they get fined?
0. Pat Buck wasn't supposed to get in the way. These staff members, they care about their employees here.
I mean, there must be some semblance of reality attached to these numbers. I guess that in the NFL, if you attacked a staff member, you'd be fined somewhere in this range.
What did Latrell Sprewell get in 2004?
You're asking the wrong guy. But, yeah, it sounds like a whole lot of money for something that pretty much takes place every single week. How many fines would Lance Archer have paid by this point?
It's kind of a good point when we're talking about the exact same show. So that Twitch money might be mad though for Miro. Maybe this is a drop in the bucket. He's upset at Orange Cassidy because he doesn't care about anything, including likes, retweets, and subscribers. Next week, he's facing Sonny Kiss on Dark, and then on Dynamite, we're going to have the wedding date announcement for Kip and Penelope. When he's asked about Christmas, he yells, "Bah, humbug. That's my birthday." And it is. He is born on December 25th.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, he must really love Twitch, this guy. He came out of this company as what I would say the hottest act of that crop of talents that were released by the WWE, and comes in clearly. This is most of his idea. He's like, bring me in, make me a Twitch guy. I'll cut promos about stats and views and likes. Like, he must really love this shit. He's all in on Twitch.
Maybe this guy just realized, like, wrestling is my promotional vehicle to a world where I can make a living sitting at home on Twitch.
Honestly,
that's the goal.
It honestly feels like that. It feels like Twitch is first and foremost, and the wrestling is secondary.
Well, hey, to each his own. No one's going to tear their ACL on Twitch. Eddie Kingston comes out solo. He doesn't care about any of you people. He's got lots of enemies. He looks up to the sky. You're the biggest one, but I'm not dead yet. The next one is Pac, and he injured his neck. That guy's never coming back. His career's over. The third is Lance Archer, who immediately runs out to attack Kingston. It's 3-on-1 with Butcher and the Blade getting involved. Then Phoenix and Penta are out, followed by the man whose career is done and we'll never see again, Pac. He comes out, and the four take out the family, ending with the tornado dive by Phoenix onto Butcher and Blade. But then Pac and Archer get into it because Pac attacks Kingston right as Archer is going to chokeslam him, so they're upset with one another.
I like the fact that we finally have some sort of order between several, I would say, loose ends and characters in this mix. Without much explanation, like we just had Archer kind of put into Pac's role over the past week, and now they're able to use that as a sort of, battle between the two alpha males on the babyface side of things. I think that, it's building up to an interesting semi-feud, but I don't know. I do wonder if like any original plans were changed here, if like anything was juggled, but because like I will say, like, for me at least, the sense of this entire thing is that it's at least somewhat scattered and relatively heatless, especially when you compare like what Moxley was doing prior to this. Or sorry, with what Kingston was doing with Moxley.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Kingston has, that was such a big main event program, and this is kind of a, he's taken a few steps back here, as can be expected. But
what's the grudge here? Like, what's the real story here? To me, like, a part of my disappointment is that they spent so much time building up Penta as Eddie's best friend. Nothing came of that after the turn. I
think all of that could have been explained more. Like, you get like the base of Eddie Kingston was kind of like trying to divide the brothers and stuff, but I don't think that was near focused upon enough. That this guy who had gained their trust, and here he was the dividing line within to break up this family.
Yeah, instead, like, you pivoted now to like Archer kind of digging up that like battle royal elimination from kind of out of nowhere from like a month ago, and then now you're trying to like mix that in with Pac. I just think it calls for like, I'm not really sure, but it just seems a little bit scattered to me, at least up until this point.
Dasha interviewed Dustin Rhodes, who said 7 was a bad idea years ago. It's a bad idea now. And I think he got upset saying, you called me the third least important member of the Rhodes family, which would mean he would be ahead of them in importance.
The third least?
He would mean
important?
That I was the third, that I was, I think he said, I think what he wanted to say is that I was the least important Rhodes, but by saying right. I was the third least important one, that means what? Brandi's the second least important, and Cody is the most least important.
Yes, right. He should have said.
I think we all knew what he was saying, but nonetheless, less words makes for a more simplistic.
Man, the YouTube comments are really going to hate us on this one. You nitpicking negatives.
It's so negative. Like, I don't understand. Do you just wake up every morning with a cloud over your head? Well, you cut a hell of a promo here, so screw off. We're being positive. It was a good promo. He's going to kick Evil Uno's ass next week. He's going to go one by one through all of the Dark Order.
1 through...
Is this going to be like Ricochet, where he's going to lose to every member of the Dark Order and they're going to try and recruit him?
I don't know. I hope not. So, yeah. I hope nothing is. I don't think anything could be like Dark Order. There'll be plenty of conversation about about Retribution. You know what? Retribution are in Dark Order's place where Dark Order was in 2019. Right now.
I would say that that's a good comparison point of where they were 2019. So what you're saying is that Retribution
2021 is their year. Yeah.
They are a YouTube hit away from a total rebound.
I honestly, if you want to salvage this thing, make them comedy. Like, they're already laughable.
Dude, T-Bar on Twitter is hilarious.
Oh,
like
bet.
he's having fun with this where especially this week he could have had some grand fun on Monday.
Give me the Retribution web series, like they're just hacking away, hacking something.
They should be online taking credit for these ratings. We told you we are going to destroy this place, and after 4 months, record low.
Wow. Yeah, what a threat.
The lowest quarter was Mace. Best Friends, Top Flight, and the Varsity Blondes against Chris Jericho, Santana Ortiz, MJF, Jake Hager, and Sammy Guevara. This was supposed to be a 14-man tag, but they announced earlier in the day that Wardlow had some family situation, could not travel to the tapings, and thus they removed him, and Brandon got cut.
Yes. Odd man out, unfortunately. I mean...
Wow.
He really was the expendable one. Like, he's the one who's not in the tag team. I'm sure they'll make a story out of it on BTE.
Cassidy is asleep on commentary, and Jericho starts off with Pillman, and the two traded chops. They were noting this is the first time the two have ever locked up, and Pillman did Jericho's springboard dropkick on him. And I bet this was probably a cool deal for Jericho to work with Brian Pillman.
Absolutely, yeah. It's really interesting having like a Brian Pillman appear on a show like this with so many guys that would have at least been around, like when his dad was. There's such a great potential for storytelling, and you could tell Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone love calling this guy's matches because it just kind of allows them to dump all their Brian Pillman knowledge into these. So yeah.
And Ross says that Griff Garrison reminds him of Adam Copeland.
Similar hair, similar build, I guess. Yeah,
that's right. Dante Martin is in with MJF briefly. Then Santana and Ortiz get in it with Best Friends that they made a big deal out of because it's the first time they've met since the parking lot brawl. And the babyfaces clear the ring, and we get a 6-way hug before we go to picture-in-picture. We come back. Jericho and Guevara are doing their pose. Darius Martin caught Ortiz with a standing Spanish fly, and then Dante with a dive to the floor. I think these guys are great. Top Flight.
I agree. I wasn't sure if, like, after that one match with the Bucks, whether we just, after they were signed, whether we just see them in dark, but it's clear that they have, like, ideas and, a direction for them on Dynamite.
It's hard to stand out in this tag division, and I think they're doing a really good job of isolating themselves from, like, the others. Like, they feel like the hot of the several rising teams. They feel like the hottest act to me of, like, the upcoming tag
the
teams.
new ones. Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jericho then uses the bat on Griff Garrison, leading to a lariat by Jake Hager, and he lifts him up, and he hit a pretty brutal F10. This thing did not look great.
He lifted him up. He was about to go for the arm triangle, which is his usual finish, and then just kind of hesitates and decides to hit Wardlow's F10 instead. So I thought that was a nice touch, even though the F10 looked more like an F4.
Yeah, like the F up.
Yes.
And then tags MJF, who they call the Rat, who pins Griff in 14 minutes and 19 seconds.
To me, it was a match that was notable for, continuing the showcases of Top Flight and Varsity Blondes, who I think both teams got pretty good showcases here. Just to even put those two teams in there with your top faction, and especially a guy like Chris Jericho, and having those two teams be very competitive with them, I think is actually a really great way to, like, build them up, even in a loss.
I came out of this, I wanted to see Jericho, whether it be Jericho and Hager or Jericho and MJF, or even in singles matches. Like, I thought, man, I want to see a future tag match with the Varsity Blondes, and I definitely want to see a future match with Top Flight. And when Top Flight attacked Jericho and MJF, they put all the emphasis on Top Flight. And number one, you wanted the match. Number 2, they teased the match. And number 3, they said next week you're going to get the match. That is all I want out of wrestling. Tease something, make me want it, and then deliver it. I thought this was just laid out perfectly.
Yes, completely agreed. We're easy to please.
It's literally the formula. Give us something we want. Marvez was interviewing Thunder Rosa, who addressed Britt Baker and blamed her for losing her match to Serena Deeb, and Baker believing she doesn't belong here. Rebel shows up and says, "You have a horrible laugh." And this is a distraction for Baker to jump Thunder Rosa, who's not welcome here, pours water over her face paint, and then Baker looks concerned at the camera and says, "Does that still work? Did the ugly face break the camera?" And Baker leaves.
I like the segment overall. I thought Rosa sounded really charismatic in the interview. To me, like, she already has the presence of somebody who feels like the top babyface in the division. So I would really love to continue to hear her cutting promos every week. I actually, I'm surprised we haven't heard more recently, but I know she's NWA, but like, this is a division that I think is in great need of like characters that have that sort of superstar appeal, and they need to feature them on the shows. The segment itself, a lot of these like backstage segments, you know, like these backstage attacks, and I'm thinking about, you know, ones like this, like what we saw with Jade Cargill and Nyla Rose like weeks back. They all feel really
set up the tag match tonight. Yeah,
they all feel really rushed to me, and I understand like they're trying to cram as much of this action into like a short amount of time as possible because they want to focus on in-ring like content, right, to prevent people from switching channels. But it does result in like some very kind of rushed, unnatural performances without that much breathing space at all. And to me, that's a little bit detrimental, you know, for me to really kind of get into this. But like, it was a good segment, I think, in general.
Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian against the Acclaimed, Anthony Bowens and Max Caster. Max did his rap referring to Christopher Daniels as CD, an outdated format, as he held up a CD.
A Nickelback CD, yeah.
A Nickelback CD, of all things. The Young Bucks are ringside here, but the beat keeps going, and Kazarian takes the mic. He rhymes rap with crap, which I guess is what's old is new again. And he says, "You're out here dissing, or are you just men on a mission?" And says, "Their rapping is like the year 2020. It's the shits." And I can't do this justice, but I thought Kazarian was hilarious here.
Oh, Kaz ethered these dudes.
Oh, man. I think it's a good introduction that you've got Max Caster doing this, but I don't know if it's a long-term thing you can run with.
Probably not. Not at this level, I will say. Yeah, it's a great way to, I think, introduce somebody, to step somebody up from Dark to Dynamite, but I was way more entertained by Kaz.
Kazarian was great here. Like, he just, to me, he stole the segment. Like, he was so funny here.
Yeah, I thought Caster's lines were pretty weak.
They note Max's father, Rich Caster, the NFL player. During the break, they get the advantage on Kazarian until he tags Daniels, who gets Irish whipped by Bowens, but delivers an STO to Caster and a Blue Thunder Bombs hit. But then Daniels gets nailed with the boombox by Max Caster from the floor. Bowens lifts him, twisting Uranagi Slam, pinning Daniels in 8:21. It is their 8th consecutive win, and Caster proceeds to cut a rap on the Bucks, stating they look like girls on their cycle, calls them a cuck, and does, like, this was the thing Cena would always do, where he would rhyme one word and tease saying fuck, but the partner's got to stop him. It's like, on this show where they swear like every other segment, I guess fuck is the land we cannot travel to. Anyway, they are the heels in all of this, so I guess they can look kind of silly at times, but I don't know. The rap thing, again, I think it's a good way to establish, especially Max Caster. Mm-hmm. But I think long term, I think it's actually kind of limiting if these guys can actually be good promos.
Yeah, I don't even know if they're thinking about long term right now. I think, they just want to have anybody make an impression.
It's an introduction, which, I mean, they're fresh on TV. So I'm not saying, like, ditch it right now. There's, it's fine. But the bigger thing here is they are going to do the Young Bucks against the Acclaimed next week for the tag titles. And I think following that NBA game, that's the match I'm putting on first immediately with your hot team, your big, the Young Bucks, their numbers do very, very well. And you've got your team on the rise in the Acclaim to introduce to a new audience as well. That's how I would start AEW next week.
I don't disagree. I mean, starting with the Bucks is, I think, always a good idea. That's a huge, huge responsibility for the Acclaimed here in a short amount of time since their introduction, at least on Dynamite. I personally think it feels a little early for, like, an actual title match, at least in story. But, if the goal is to continue the introduction via a match with the Bucks, like, you kind of have to justify a way to kind of get there, right? Especially if you want to, like, promote this being a tag title match. So, yeah, we'll see what they can do. I wonder what that rap is going to be. That to me is going to be the big pressure situation for Max Caster coming off of a basketball game.
Yeah, you got to work in. Well, you're following a Milwaukee Bucks game into the Young Bucks, but that doesn't rhyme. That's just the same word.
I mean, you set it up right there. All the F words you could tease.
Kazarian was also upset with Daniels and stormed off.
Cameron almost kind of missed that, but, like, this was also the significant part of this match, like teasing some sort of dissension between Kaz and Daniels.
Yeah, so maybe they'll have a wrap off.
Have they not done that? I swear, like, in TNA they've done.
Oh, they were doing, like, every week they were doing the throwback gimmick as well. I'm sure there was some rapping in there. Maybe Kazarian challenges him to a rap battle next week. So Kazarian comes with mic in hand, and Daniels comes out with presents. Christmas presents.
Oh, rap, like WRAP.
And he misses the point of what Kazarian was challenging him to.
Nice. I had to see it in writing.
I could not be near a creative staff. Dasha interviewed Top Flight. They compliment Jericho and MJF. They are the coldest team in the game, and they challenge MJF and Jericho for next week. You can accept or run away like two little bitches.
I was really impressed at Darius's, like, delivery and confidence. He seemed TV ready, at least by this short promo.
These guys they're on the fast track. I'm very high on this team.
Yeah.
Serena Deeb and Big Swole versus Ivelisse and Diamante. Swole got her neck snapped on the top rope as Diamante followed with a German. We go through the break. Deeb did an Indian deathlock on Ivelisse with a simultaneous snap suplex to Diamante and then a figure four on Ivelisse. They roll to the rope. Swole is tagged in. Dirty Dancing is ducked. And they note that she has been working with Dean Malenko and therefore uses her submission that has been inspired by Malenko, the Clearwater Cloverleaf that she applies to Diamante while Deeb tackles down Ivelisse, forcing Diamante to tap out.
Really emphasizing this new submission that Swole has. Essentially, it's a Texas Cloverleaf, but kind of like mixed with the Walls of Jericho, like the Lion Tamer variation. Elevated and with, like, sort of a knee in the back of the neck. Good looking finish. And I think Swole definitely needs something like a new weapon to refresh her. Match itself was okay.
And then Nyla Rose ran in with Vicky for the attack. It's 3-on-2. And then Red Velvet came in with a chair. They cleared it for the heels. So maybe a 6-woman tag comes out of that.
In general, I think, man, like,
too many angles.
Or like my criticisms about this division are going to be the same, like, every single week. It's a division that's sorely lacking in, like, personalities that we can recognize and understand. Like, it needs more stories. It needs more promos. Even, like, BTE segments, just, to tell me something about the people that you're constantly introducing. I know nothing about Red Velvet. I mean, I barely know why Nia and Vicky attacked, like, what was it, Deeb? Like, in
That's
the back?
A lot of the go-to setups. It's just like, I attack you, we're outnumbered, someone saves us, and that's the match.
Yeah,
like, fine. It's just, it's not. You need more than just that. I think that there's only so much you can get behind with that kind of premise.
They introduced Jade Cargill as sort of like a principal character in this whole thing. She's nowhere to be seen. Like last we heard Jade Cargill, she was talking about Shaq, and it's like there's just way too many kind of loose ends, and it does feel unfocused to me.
Well, and that also, I mean, wherever that was going, whether it be Jade Cargill with Brandi or a mixed tag, I mean, that's got to be out the window now.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Not going to be doing any physicality with Brandi Rhodes.
She's clearly still going to be involved. Like she could cut promos.
She can do. It's just you have to go about it a different way. Like you're not going to be able to do the mixed tag. You know, I mean, you could do Cody and Shaq. You could put someone in for Brandi. I guess you could get around it that way. But I mean, the initial plan, it looked to be, you know, they were certainly teasing like a mixed tag. That's what I took out of it.
Right.
Best friends state it will never be over with Santana and Ortiz. They are excited about the wedding date announcement next week, and they are going to show up at the Holiday Bash, and inferring that they will somehow get involved with the wedding date announcement.
Yes.
Exciting. Jurassic Express had a highlight video, which was some pretty spectacular spots put together. FTR are complaining to the announcers if the tag division even means anything. They make fun of Jurassic Express. This is how we feed our families. And they warn Jurassic Express that they're in their way. And they storm off from the announcers.
I really liked this promo here, especially from Dax Harwood. It was full of intensity. It's a very easy, natural story to be able to tell, given their respective gimmicks here. You have, you know, FTR, who are a no-nonsense team. And then you have a team of like a dinosaur and like a kid who, you know, at least at one time thought he was Tarzan. Like you don't really need a whole lot of storytelling here because the nature of their gimmicks makes them rivals. You know, the mere existence of a guy wrestling in a dinosaur mask thinking he's a dinosaur is enough to piss FTR off. And I thought the promo pretty much like drove that home very effectively by him saying, this is an insult. This is a threat to my family. You guys promoting this guy is a threat to my family.
Next week, it's the Young Bucks and the Acclaim for the titles. Jericho and MJF against Top Flight. And on the graphic, it did say with Wardlow.
Okay.
And they're taping that, I assume, tomorrow.
Interesting. Okay.
Jurassic Express against Colt Cabana, 5 and 10 in a 6-man tag. And Hikaru Shida in action. Dustin Rhodes against Evil Uno. And Pac against The Butcher. So I would say your two top tag matches would be the big ones next week.
Yeah. Are you expecting like, I guess, you know, maybe more worthwhile to comment about this once we get the ratings on Thursday, but like, I sense that like these shows aren't really being pushed as clearly as big as maybe the last 2 weeks. And do you see the ratings reflecting that?
Yeah, we'll see if they announce any additions to this for next week. Yeah, on the surface, I think the biggest draw is that they're following a heavily watched NBA game. Like right. that should get them off to a great start. Yeah, because on the surface, and maybe for that reason,
tag title match.
Yeah. I really like the idea of starting the show with the Bucks and the Acclaimed, but looking at this lineup, like maybe they believe they should save that for the main event as well, because there's not a whole lot of matches on here that scream a main event for next week beyond that tag title match. I guess you could do the Top Flight. If Top Flight were getting the win, there's certainly an argument to close the show with that. If they get some fluke win and Jericho and MJF can't get along.
Or if you're going to have like any sort of involvement with Shaq, or at least Cody cutting a promo on Shaq, should it not be next week? Should that not be the first segment?
Well, and those are certain things I could see them announcing over the course of the week, like, you know, certain like people appearing and whatever appearances we have. Main event is Kenny Omega, Joey Janela, no disqualification title eliminator match. Whereas if Janela wins, he will get a future title shot. Omega's intro included raising Impact's ratings by 33% and AEW drawing their best number of the year last week. Callis is out with Omega, and he tries to kick Shivani off commentary, and Tony tells him to kiss his ass. So instead, Callis grabs a microphone and does commentary during the match ringside. Janela immediately blasts Omega with a trash can, and like this was starting like 9 minutes left in the show. Like, it was very late for an AEW main event to start.
Yes.
So you knew they were going to be rushing through this. We see a Kotaro Crusher delivered on the floor to Janela on a chair. They did bring up the Laredo Kid match, but it was very much in passing and no footage. Like, they really didn't put any kind of spotlight on Triple Mania.
Well, I'll say for a guy who's kind of working this belt collector gimmick, like, I don't know if I really get the sense that he's following that same thing on Dynamite. Like, he's mentioning the belt collector thing on Impact, but you would figure he would at least show up with like the mega title at some point, right? Like,
yeah,
why
I mean,
not
it was it's just like the one mention by Excalibur, and that's what it was limited to. Callis calls the Terminator dive, the Tope Con Hilo, as Excalibur goes, "It's Hero." I love that. He calls Callis calls Janela an ugly hardcore wrestler, and he's doing this on the microphone, like right next to him. Omega gets on the microphone, and like they're kind of mixing in like these comedic lines with like a hardcore match. Janela ends up getting brutalized with a trash can, and as Kenny lifts him for the one-winged angel, it's countered with a reverse Rana. Sonny kisses ringside, pulls out the table, and Omega gets placed on the table, and Janela comes off the top with a leg drop, putting Omega through the table, rolls him into the ring, misses a moonsault, and Kenny is just right back to full health as he hits 2 V-triggers and the one-winged angel, and he wins this thing in 6 minutes and 8 seconds.
From the get-go, when like Joey Janela ran at Kenny Omega with that trash can right upon that grand entrance, this thing was operating at a really crazy quick pace, and I found it very entertaining. It was not very, it was competitive, but like maybe it wasn't sort of the lengthy back and forth that you might expect from a Kenny Omega match, and I don't think it should be. I think for your TV, your champion should be winning quick matches. To me, it was a spectacle enough just to be able to see him wrestle, and I think some of these spots that they incorporated in here definitely made me very satisfied watching it. I thought the Callis thing was really entertaining. I'm glad they didn't do it for the whole match because it definitely had made its point, and I think was bordering on overstaying its welcome. But I found it very entertaining overall.
The announcers mentioned they did bring up Jon Moxley, who for another week did not appear, which I like. I think it'll be notable when Jon Moxley finally shows up. And if for instance, if that's the February pay-per-view, he doesn't need to be there now. And people can just wonder when he's going to show up and make it impactful when he does return.
Do you expect him making any appearances anywhere else?
Oh, in regards to like Wrestle Kingdom?
Yeah, or like, I don't know, I guess something with Kenta or something like that.
I guess there's always the possibility that he could do that. I'm not expecting it. I would say it's like a small percentage, but I can't say 100% he doesn't do it. Callis says that's for all the haters, that he's now beaten Janela, who was replaced in the tournament, and now Omega is officially the rightful champion. But then Pac comes out, noting that they have unfinished business, and said Phoenix never lost in the tournament, so how can Omega be the rightful champion? Omega says, wrestlers don't tell the world champion what to do. Pac says, well, that's where you're wrong, because I spoke to Tony Khan. The title match is sanctioned for December 30th. It's Kenny Omega versus Rey Fenix, and Kenny Omega just lost his mind. He just sold this tremendously. Like the guy has just told him that, the world's coming to an end on December 30th. And that is going to be a hell of a match in 2 weeks.
I'm very excited for it. I mean, of course, this was supposed to take place, in that tournament. Could have been a great opening round match, but I think it's an even better main event being put in that slot with the kind of like, extravagance of a title attached to it. So, it's a big match to promote on your TV show to me.
Makes complete sense, from the tournament when he was hurt and Penta had to replace him, that you put this in. This will be a big match on TV. I think this will be, I don't know if this is going to be, it's not going to be the Moxley level of significance, but I think this is going to be come 2 weeks from now with like a solid week of promotion next week. I think that this will be a pretty anticipated match.
in that time, like at least they only have really 1 week, but I hope they had like a lot in store for Phoenix to be able to, convey more about the man's background, his personality, his story leading up to this. Maybe give me a road to, if you can, if you have the time to do that. Like, these are great opportunities to tell us something about these guys that we really haven't had enough from.
So I thought tonight's Dynamite, I still thought the show, it moved very quick. I thought there was
They always move quick. If anything, like that's,
Well, I'm going to point it out when there's other shows that drag me to a halt throughout the 3 hours. So but I will say that, like, this is a very busy show. Like, there is a lot that they are putting into these 2 hours.
Getting to the point now where, like, I think you're even starting to hear some backlash to, like, how much is going on these shows. If the alternative is, like, what you get on a 3-hour Monday, then yeah, I'd much prefer to take this. Like, give me the explosion from this Dynamite any day. Then I suppose what's the opposite of an explosion? Like a slow, like a drip from a faucet.
Yes, that would be the opposite of an explosion.
Yeah, a fast-moving show. I can't say like every segment really. Several segments maybe didn't land for me. Same with some of these matches. So to me, lower quality Dynamite than previous weeks. But I'm excited for some of the future directions.
In terms of like riding this wave of momentum, demo figure last week was a 0.45. I don't think anyone's expecting a 0.45. I don't know if you can necessarily expect a 0.4. Where do you envision AEW finishing tomorrow?
I'm so bad at guessing, honestly. Like I'm going to say maybe I'm going to say high threes. Yeah, I'll agree with you.
I'm pretty optimistic about just this feeling like a hot show right now. I don't know if they'll hit a 0.4, but I'm gonna guess that they will.
All right. You want to put money on it?
If they do, that's a really great accomplishment. If they do, if they can top, I don't know if they'll top Raw from Monday, but that will be, it's gonna be close. I think it will be close. Let's look at the forum before we get out of here. Tonight's show gets a 7.5 from our forum, and we'll go through these questions quickly. Adam from the street. The Acclaimed's gimmick died a giant death tonight. SCU did it better. Back when Sting came into WWE, was there any thought or conversation of bringing in Tony Schiavone? Vince might not have thought so, but just his voice adds so much to the presentation of Brother Nate Milton's favorite sports entertainer. No, like that's...
They're not bringing one commentator just for one guy.
They don't think like that. And I can't even fault them that you would make a whole hiring just for the call, but
they don't have any
Vince McMahon for, like, especially. Like there's no WCW nostalgia in Vince McMahon at all for an idea like that. And I think if anything, it would be an idea pitched to him that I think would be not even given a thought.
We got an Anthony who says, "Bitch sure got a lot of love on tonight's show, it seems. The Addiction is better than the Acclaimed. They are all right in the ring, but that rap was straight cringe. The 14 two-man tag was great. Sammy Guevara was clearly the long-term project AEW sees, and it shows. I ain't drinking any Florida water, but still, congrats to the American father and mother for another addition to the Nightmare family."
Noah from Vaughn. Fun show tonight. All right. This is... I'm just skimming through. I love the opener with the good, the bad, and the hungy. Super looking forward to seeing more of those three together. Main event made Kenny come off like such a big-time star, and the announcement of Phoenix Omega is not only logical because Phoenix never lost, but should be fantastic. Tomorrow should be very interesting if AEW can somehow pull in similar numbers to the last couple of weeks. For tonight's show, which by and large was a fairly standard episode, then that will definitely be a good sign for them going into the new year as they cap their best month since October of 2019. 8 out of 10 show tonight.
Andrew from Cape Breton says, "Impact Wrestling likes to say they're hard to kill, but Tony Schiavone is doing his hardest to try." Yeah, Tony had some, continues to have like some pretty like savage lines. Week 2 of this is interesting as it seems like a little one-sided with the comments. Maybe Scott D'Amore and Petey Williams could come in with a paid advertisement and talk about how everyone is using Petey's finish but kicking out because Petey did it best. Something to make the rivalry less one-sided.
Oh, yeah, that would be a zinger.
I just, I agree that I think like Impact needs to maybe fire some shots while on AEW's time too. Maybe even on their own time. Like, because you're not hearing that much of a response really even from Impact. But
I think you do want to convey like a realism to it as well. Like, I'm not saying Impact should be...
They can't afford to pay for TNT airtime.
No, it's like, it's not even that. It's just that, I mean... Like in this, like the story is that one is so above the other that Impact almost doesn't come across credible. Like what are they?
Why should I care about this feud if it's not going to be competitive?
Well, I think that there is definitely a promo to do, but if it's just something as like firing shots at AEW, I think you have to do it in a more like thought out way of, if it's just being, standing up for yourselves, that's one thing. If it's just like how are they going to insult AEW, with a quick 30-second promo on AEW's TV, like, look at this, TNT, you only got 45 million? We bought a network. Like, I don't know.
What my concern is that does this rivalry really exist outside of Impact Wrestling on Tuesdays?
Not right now, it doesn't, no.
Right. And that to me is at the detriment of like the entire thing. I think AEW would benefit from having involvement from Impact on their show, in the form of, something like this. So,
but like, if anything, like Impact has been the beneficiary so far. For sure. So it's like, they are the doormat of the storyline, but I mean, they are the ones reaping the benefits of this.
Oh yeah.
It's like AEW is not really thus far, doing anything in return. Although I think, like, again, we're only like a few weeks into this, that you can build to something.
I certainly think, like, even though there are best of shows coming up, like, they should shoot something, some wraparound stuff. Like, stay tuned to the entire show, like, go into commercial break, have slight appearance, like, have somebody hijack. Man, have the fucking Dark Order hijack that show.
Do your sit down with Scott D'Amore to talk about this.
Yes.
Or do... So, like, and as well, like, they are positioning Scott D'Amore as more on the side of like, this is great for us on TV. They're starting to do more of the Twitter stuff now, where he's kind of defending the company and taking his shots. But it's, like, I think you could put in something. It doesn't have to be new matches. It's just an interview. Put in something that would at least drive you, that's centered around this angle.
Mm-hmm.
Is it you or?
I'll go. Kate from Montreal says, when I heard about Janela getting a title shot because he missed his tournament match, my first thought was, what about Phoenix? So the ending left me feeling satisfied. Great to see Thunder Rosa again, and it does finally feel like the women's division is gaining a bit of momentum, especially factoring in the matches on Dark lately. In 20 years, who thinks they're getting Baby Moxley versus Baby Rhodes for the AEW title?
Who is...
why in 20 years? Why not do it in 5 years? Okay.
Yeah, they'll get they could get fast tracked. They could be there a lot earlier. Paul from New Jersey. I don't know why this company even bothers having referees. Thought it made your young guys look stupid, having 5 of them cower to a 61-year-old man with a baseball bat. No Sheeta tonight yet again. I really don't see the difference between this company in WWE sometimes.
I mean, a baseball bat is like 5 guys. Okay. Steel chair is like maybe 2 people, but a baseball bat, that's like 5. That's as good as 5 people.
You go run at a guy with a baseball bat.
Yeah. I don't care how many people you have. MJ, who is not from North Carolina. But seriously, when normal audiences are your thing again, saying North Carolina for Kenny's entrance is going to be so over. AEW feels like a show where the tide has risen and everything feels elevated. Watched on delay and texted fellow patron John Pine how every segment was not really something I wanted to skip. And the matches are quality and feature new and fresh talent and guys I like. They're hitting on so many cylinders. Sure, I can nitpick and basically JR is unlistenable for me at this point, but what I love is that everything seems to have fairly solid logic and reasoning. And there's so much you can foreshadow. For example, you knew with them doing this Joey match, it would make sense to do the Phoenix match. It will also make sense to do a Pac match after they had a great early 2020 Iron Man. It's all stuff I'm down to watch because, again, the wrestling is great for free TV.
Jesse from Montreal. He says, the best thing about an outdoor show in cool temperatures is the steam that emanates off the wrestlers' bodies, making them look like Norse gods. Very cool. What wasn't cool was all the people talking over each other during the main event while Joey Janela looks weak. And what does Impact gain from babyface commentator Tony Schiavone dumping on them on TNT? I guess we can assume they're not building to a mixed tag now. So what's the end game for Cody and Shaq? A singles match. We'll see. We'll see if we ever get to that.
You could still do a mixed tag if you want, or just a tag team match. You know, who's to say it even has to be mixed? They can pivot if they really need to.
It's all down to if Shaq is willing to do a match, he'll make it work. If he's lukewarm to it, then it could just fall by the wayside. But I mean, they'll find a way. If he's willing to do it, they'll work around it. It's not too difficult.
And what does Impact gain from babyface commentator Tony Schiavone dumping on them on TNT? Relevance. But again, it can't be just a one-sided thing. At some point, Impact should really respond in their own way and make this, an actual competition. We go to Steve from BC, who says, my only complaints tonight would be the use of Sting. I think it's finally time he cuts a promo explaining what his intentions are. Having him just come out to stare everyone down again didn't do anything for me. I mean, last week he said he has his sights set on Darby, but didn't really say a whole lot. Maybe this week should have been that week where he, further explained.
Yeah, and we said that. I think that the next one, I think the next thing we should do like an interview with Sting or something. Like, why is he here in AEW? Do like your sit down, Jim Ross and Sting sit down interview. I think you could promote that, and I think that would be very interesting.
He says, maybe I missed it, but was there any mention of Omega reuniting with the Good Brothers on Impact? No, there was not.
Nope, they didn't mention that. They didn't mention Hard to Kill. It was like that. That's all operating within Impact's world.
Yeah, I'm disappointed to see that because I think we wanted, at least as fans, when you talk about a crossover, this kind of all-encompassing, everybody is talking about the big events of the week. We're not ignoring anything that happened somewhere else. Like for an event like as big as, a Bullet Club reunion to take place on another show, I think it at least was worth mentioning from somebody, but maybe they have different opinions.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for the feedback tonight and checking out this edition of Rewind to Dynamite. We've got many shows coming your way, so you can go check the schedule for that, including the British Wrestling Experience that will drop, Bushby and Thompson's Wrestling Adventure dropping on the British Wrestling Experience feed on Thursday. So check all of that out, and we can watch the world come to a pause Thursday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time.
The world come to a pause.
That's when our favorite numbers are going to be likely coming out on Thursday.
Yes. Wow. Okay.
Exciting stuff. All right. Well, there we go. We'll be back Friday night, Rewind to SmackDown. We'll look ahead to the TLC pay-per-view and whatever goes down on SmackDown. So, Wai, thank you as always. A fun time.
Yeah, thank you, John. Thank you to everybody who's downloaded this show and has listened. Follow us. We never do this, eh? Like, we never tell people to follow us or where to go. But if you are curious, if you'd like to follow everything that we do, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. We're all at Post Wrestling. POSTWRESTLING.
Perfect. I want every single person listening to this to go follow us on every single one of those platforms. Do it now, and that is all. Good night.